Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. My name is Charlie. When I discovered that my wife was pregnant, carrying her boss's baby, but still expected me to raise a child, I knew I had to do something she would never see coming. Looking back, I can see the signs were there long before Sabrina ever became pregnant. But when you're living inside a marriage, buried under work deadlines, bills, and the constant grind of adulthood, it's easy to miss the quiet warnings that something is breaking. Sabrina and I had been married for 6 years before everything finally unraveled. We first met through mutual friends back when I was working as a consultant at a mid-level firm, and she had just started her first real job as a junior loan officer at First National Bank. We shared the same ambitions, both eager to build solid careers and create a secure life together. The early years of marriage were good. After our second anniversary, we bought a modest 3-bedroom house in the suburbs that felt huge compared to the tiny apartment we had started out in. We spent most evenings having dinner together, taking trips, talking about everything, work gossip, future plans, even silly dreams. Our intimacy was strong back then, and we were fully satisfied in each other's arms. But around year 4, things started to shift. It was subtle at first. I assumed it was a natural stage all couples go through when the initial spark settles into a routine. We were working longer hours, coming home exhausted, spending nights glued to our laptops or half asleep in front of the TV. Date nights became rare. Conversations turned into practical checklists about groceries, bills, and errands. Our physical intimacy dropped from several times a week to maybe once every few weeks. Sabrina always seemed more tired and stressed than me. I tried not to take it personally, convincing myself this was just what happened when a marriage matured. At our 4th anniversary dinner, I brought up having kids. Sabrina had always said she wanted children someday, but when I mentioned it that night, she brushed it off. She said she was focused on earning a promotion and that we needed to be financially secure before starting a family. I told her I understood, and I really tried to. I knew how competitive banking was and how hard Sabrina had worked to carve out a place for herself in a male-dominated field. I supported her timeline, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little disappointed. At 30, I was ready for the next chapter. Not long after that, the real changes began. Sabrina started working late more often. When I asked her about it, she explained that the promotion required more effort and that client meetings were running long. She reminded me that success in banking meant putting in extra hours if she wanted to climb the ladder. Soon, she was attending every networking event, every industry seminar. At home, she was glued to her phone, saying it was confidential work she couldn't share. The distance between us kept growing. She would come home late, shower immediately, and then spend more time on her phone or laptop. Weekends used to be sacred, but suddenly she had urgent tasks or team events. My attempt at intimacy were turned down more often, and when we did have sex, it felt mechanical, like her mind was somewhere else entirely. I felt like we had stopped building a life together and had just become two people sharing expenses under the same roof. Eventually, I told Sabrina how I felt, that our marriage seemed to be falling apart while she poured all her attention into work. I asked her if something else was going on. Her reaction was sharp and dismissive. She called me insecure, accused me of trying to hold her back just as her career was taking off. I was hurt and confused, so I turned to close friends whose marriage I admired. They reassured me that Sabrina was probably just overwhelmed with work. My friend's wife even shared how she had been distant and distracted while preparing for her CPA exam. Their words calmed me, at least for a while. I convinced myself that what Sabrina needed most was patience and support, not suspicion. So I became more accommodating, encouraged her career focus, and tried to adjust. But even my gestures felt unwelcome. On the rare occasions I surprised her at the office, she seemed almost irritated. She rushed me out quickly, saying she had too much to do. Both times, I noticed her branch manager hanging around. He seemed friendly enough, so I didn't think much of it then. By our 5th anniversary, I had mostly convinced myself this was just a phase, that once Sabrina reached her career goals, we'd get back to normal. We went to the same Italian restaurant we had celebrated at every year. The evening felt off from the start. Sabrina was distracted, like something was weighing on her. After dessert, she finally told me she was 8 weeks pregnant. My first reaction was pure happiness. I thought this was a breakthrough we needed, the thing that would pull us back together. I grabbed her hands and immediately started talking about baby names, nurseries, and when we'd tell our families. But her face didn't match the moment. She looked nervous, not happy. Later that night, I started doing the math. 8 weeks pregnant meant conception happened about 10 weeks ago. I couldn't remember the last time we'd been truly intimate. Really intimate. Not just a quick, half-hearted attempt. The timing didn't make sense. The next morning, when I suggested calling our parents, Sabrina asked me to wait until the second trimester. She wanted to keep it private just in case. It felt strange. Sabrina usually shared big news with her family right away, but I respected her request. Still, I couldn't shake my growing suspicion. I downloaded a pregnancy tracker and started comparing dates. No matter how I counted, the timeline didn't add up. What made things worse was how suddenly Sabrina became affectionate again, like flipping a switch. After months of distance, she was warm and attentive. Instead of easing my doubts, it made them worse. When I offered to come to prenatal appointments, she acted uneasy. When the doctor asked about family medical history, she quickly changed the subject. Eventually, I decided I wouldn't confront her until right before delivery. That way, if she denied everything, a DNA test would quickly settle it. Those months were torture. I had to pretend to be an excited father-to-be while secretly doubting everything. I helped with the nursery, smiled at baby showers, and kept my suspicions to myself. I quietly prepared for what might come next. Researched family law attorneys, learned about paternity rights, and even downloaded a voice recorder app in case Sabrina confessed. By week 37, I couldn't wait any longer. The baby would arrive soon, and I needed answers. One ordinary Tuesday night, after dinner, I turned on the recording app, placed my phone face down on the nightstand, and asked her the question I had been holding back for months. Whose baby is this? At first, she acted like she hadn't heard me. When I repeated it and mentioned DNA testing, she went silent. Then she asked if I was accusing her of cheating. I told her the dates didn't match up. That's when she broke down crying. The kind of cry that happens when someone is too tired to keep up a lie. Finally, she admitted it. The baby was her branch manager's. But instead of apologizing, Sabrina immediately tried to convince me we could make this work. She reminded me I had always wanted children, that we were financially stable, and that her boss was married with kids and couldn't be involved. She genuinely believed I should agree to raise her boss's baby to make her life easier. I told her I needed time to think, but in my mind, I had already decided. The next morning, I called in sick, went straight to my attorney's office, and played the recording. His advice was clear. File for divorce before the baby is born, establish non-paternity, and avoid any action that could make me legally responsible for a child that wasn't mine. I signed the papers that same day. For days later, Sabrina was served. She exploded with anger, then tried guilt, then manipulation. I refused to engage directly, directing all communication through my lawyer. She involved her parents, but I held my ground. The fallout at work was swift. News of the affair spread quickly. HR launched an investigation, and her boss was transferred. Sabrina's promotion chances evaporated. When the baby was born, Sabrina tried to list me as the father, but the court ordered a DNA test. The results proved what I had known all along. The divorce dragged on for 11 months, slowed by her attempts to get financial support. But the recording and the DNA test made her case impossible. In the end, we sold the house and split the proceeds. I kept my retirement accounts and investments, and no alimony was awarded. I never saw the baby, not once. I kept my distance, knowing emotional involvement could create obligations that would follow me forever. When the divorce was finalized, I felt relief more than sadness. The months afterward were hard. I wrestled with anger, betrayal, and loneliness. I replayed every memory, wondering what signs I had missed. Therapy helped. Eventually, I realized this wasn't just about infidelity or pregnancy. It was about the deep disrespect she had shown by expecting me to live a lie. She didn't love me. She loved the security I provided. When her affair threatened that security, she assumed I would simply absorb the consequences. 2 years later, my life is better. I moved to a new apartment, rebuilt my fitness, reconnected with friends, and earned a big promotion. I might date again, but I'm far more careful now. Filing for divorce wasn't revenge. It was survival. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is refuse to play along with someone else's lie, even if that someone is a person you once loved deeply. And the hardest part wasn't discovering the affair. It was realizing she thought so little of me that she believed I would accept it forever. That's when I knew our marriage had ended long before I signed the papers that made it official.